did you guys talk about this last week on the show? All that stuff with Paddy when he said that Dan Hooker's grappling was so bad he couldn't stop his mom from getting SA'd.
And lad, people are saying like Justin Gage, he's older than that lad. He's 2 years older than Dan Hooker.
That's true.
Dan Hooker couldn't grapple a fucking rapist off his ma. You know what I mean?
I did a video on it in Georgia from my hotel room, and I kind of defended Paddy, and I got kind of slaughtered in the comment section. What was your take on it?
I think both guys went below the belt, to be honest. I mean, I think when you talk about someone's mom, even in a hypothetical, if you're talking about that type of situation, it's going to stir up some shit from the other guy. And then, of course, Dan, I agree. He went way too far with it as well. And the really shitty part of the whole situation to me is these are two guys that are not really destined to fight anytime soon. Obviously, Paddy's fighting for the interim belt. Dan's fighting again in a couple of weeks to try to get himself back into the win column. But he's even admitted himself after that loss to Armin, he doesn't really think that he's in the title picture. Whereas I think Paddy being the younger guy and fighting somebody like Gaethje and on the rise, the only way they're hashing this one out is if they fight in the street, which, you know,
yeah,
you don't see that happen.
But let me ask you, listen, what Dan Hooker said, and again, this isn't me being English bias or anything like that. What he said, it was clearly a disgusting comment. But in his mind, Paddy had, crossed the line, so to speak. So in Dan Hooker's mind, the gloves were off, and it's like, okay, you want to get personal like that, then two can play that game. However, I think he misread it. Now, we'll see what the panel thinks as well, all four of us. But like the northern sense of humor, right? And he was speaking to another English guy. And yet he didn't need to mention the mum. But all he was saying was that he doesn't think Dan Hooker can grapple, right? He never said anything about Dan Hooker's mum. But he did use his mum in the equation. Like, do you, am I, because a lot of people say I'm wrong in thinking that, know?
I just know for me, and I know he was being hypothetical. He's not actually really referencing his mom, but for me and how I am with my mom, like anytime my mom, ever since a little kid, that was immediate turn red. We're fist fighting when I was a kid until, you know what I mean? That was just like, you don't talk about my mom. I'm immediately mad and I go for the jugular. And I feel like that's exactly what Dan did. He said the nastiest, meanest thing that he could. Do I think it's right? No way. I think bringing up somebody's friend who committed suicide is way, 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 way below the belt. But I do at least understand that he was real upset that his mom was being mentioned. But I get Paddy's thing too. From the outside looking in, I get that he's just making a joke about how bad his grappling is. And I just think both guys, shit talking goes too far. And hopefully, and I think Dan was a little bit upset too, because I think when they were having that back and forth for Dan's last fight, when Paddy was obviously in the crowd, and he was there supporting his teammates, and they were having that little back and forth, I feel like he kind of thought like, oh, we're
boys.
We're kind of like joking with each other. And then when he said that about him, I think it just took him off guard. That, wow, you're going to say that about my fighting style and bring my mom into it. But saying that about his friend crossed a pretty big line in my opinion.
Oh, yeah, no. That's without question. But I give him a pass because at that stage the gloves were off. But you're right, because I'd never looked at it from that kind of through that lens. I think if somebody said a line like that and used my mom, because I get it standing on the outside. I've been around Scousers. I used to train in Liverpool, for crying out loud. You know what I mean? They are cutting bastards. They take the piss hard, man. Like if you're not from Liverpool and you're surrounded by a bunch of Scousers, and I'm pretty witty and I can hold my own, right? You would just get butchered in a room full of Scousers. Like you just, because I'm a woolly back to them. That's what they call us. Yeah. I'm from like the countryside. So I'm a woolly back. Shut up your wool, blah, 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 blah. And like, you just can't win an argument. Do you know what I mean? With a bunch of Scousers.
You can't get overly upset because then you've lost right then and there too. Yeah.
Mate, when I was locked up years ago, when I was in prison, when I was a kid for like 28 days, I was locked up with a bunch of Scousers. And it was the same thing. They were bullying the shit out of me in a joke, busting my balls off. And I was getting upset. I was getting pissed off. And that just gave them even more. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, they're just going to go harder at you.
They were having a fucking field day with me. They're like, oh, here he is. Look at him. Go on. But you're right. If someone said that about my mom, I'd be like, what you say, you dickhead? You bringing my mom into this? So
yeah. But he turned it up to 1,000. You know what I mean? When he came back with that response, like
he did. And I don't think they're ever going to be friends again.
Nah, I don't think so. I think that one crosses the line. It's a shame they can't ever fight, but I just don't.
But
see
they
that.
might.
You never know. You never know.
But think about it. I said this on my video, so I don't want to repeat it for any double subscribers that we have. If Paddy loses to Gagey, and it's a real possibility, this is not an easy fight by any stretch of the imagination.
By no means.
And Dan Hooker, whether he wins or loses against Benoit Saint-Denis the week after in Sydney, tell me you don't want to see Dan Hooker versus Paddy Pimblett if Pimblett loses. Dan's still ranked, like number 6? Something like that. And he's fighting Benoit Saint-Denis. If he wins, you can still make it. If he loses, they're both coming off losses. And they're both entertaining guys. So there is a possibility if Paddy Pimblett loses, and that's the big one, if they lose, because you want entertaining matchups, you want that history, you want that beef, you want that build-up. I mean, the biggest one was Khabib and Conor. Look at what that did, right? You know what I'm saying? So there is a potential. They're actually
ranked one spot apart at the moment, Michael. Yeah. I didn't even realize that.
That's what I'm saying. They could fight.
They could.
If Paddy loses. If Paddy wins, forget about it. It ain't going to happen. Maybe sometime in the future if Paddy loses the belt or whatever. But if he loses,
Gaethje's 4, Paddy's 5, Hooker's 6. Dan's fighting down the ranks, which makes sense. He's coming off a loss to Arman. He's got to fight number 8 in Benoit Saint-Denis. I mean, if he beats Benoit, yeah, you're right. Or even if he loses, if Dan, I think more importantly, you're right. If Dan wins and Paddy loses, you're right. That's a good bounce back fight.
And
it's written in the stars now, baby. We called it here on BYM.
Well, I called it last week in Georgia. And the fights are happening a week apart.
Yeah.
So if Paddy loses, and we're gonna talk about that fight in just a second. If Paddy loses, if I'm Dan Hooker and I get on that microphone, I'm coming out with the best speech. You want to talk about my mom, right? You just got your ass whooped last week by Justin Gaethje. Now face me. Put your money where your mouth is. You want to talk about my mother? I'm going to make you pay. You little pussy boy. Justin Gaethje did this, did that. I'm going to finish you off. And blah, blah, blah. You know what I'm saying? Like, you could talk some crazy shit. And that fight very, very, very possibly could happen.
Yeah.